Welcome to Touched and Empowered, a show created to empower individuals to value their lives by hosting think tank discussions that will inspire positive action. Touched and Empowered with Katie and Ace starts now.
Thank you everyone for joining. Today we have Jodie Solberg. Yes, Jodie Solberg is a mental wellness and success coach, certified master hypnotherapist, transformational speaker, international best-selling author, and the founder and CEO of Psyched Up Success. She helps her clients heal from trauma, anxiety, and burnout so they can create peace, joy, and work-life harmony. Jodie's greatest joy and purpose is in helping others find their confidence and create a life they love so they can go out and pass those lessons on to the next generation. To connect with Jodie, visit www.psychedupsuccess.com. You may also follow her on social media on Instagram at psyched_up_success, or join her Facebook community at www.facebook.com/group/purpose-passion-path. Thank you so much for joining us. I have a boatload of fun questions for you because I actually did recover from complex PTSD over the past 2 years. So it's very helpful to hear a different healing modality in regards to how to go about that. I actually went through brain spotting, and I know that's not as easy or as soothing to go through in the healing process. I'd love to hear more about your practice and how did you even just start to do this? Because prior to this call, I heard your passion. I heard how much you know about your craft. I heard just so much life from you and your passion towards healing others. Where did that come from? And then how did that lead you to becoming all of these amazing healing a coach, master certified hypnotherapist, the list goes on of how you really bring yourself into this world.
Well, it has definitely been a journey, and it's been a really long one. Honestly, it started when I was a kid. I was always very highly empathic. I have always been really intuitive, and really it was developed in me as I was growing. It was encouraged to be able to tap into some of those strengths. And so I was a very sensitive child. I loved people and I loved getting to know them and how they worked. I wanted to learn all about them. So I was always very curious and was always connecting with others. And I've always been that kind of person where I could be in a fast food line and some people come up to me and just tell me their whole life and their relationships and everything that's going on in their world. And I was just that person that people felt safe with. And so even when I was in high school, for example, we had an unfortunate passing of one of my fellow students, and my teachers recognized it, and they saw that people were coming to me for guidance and for support, and they actually asked me to help counsel some of my fellow students through the death of one of our classmates. And so that was something where it was more natural for me. I always knew that I wanted to help people. I always knew that I wanted to be a therapist. It's kind of a funny story because way back in the day, we watched TV and you'd see these it was always the men for some reason, right? Or the doctors. And there was a show where there was I think he was a psychiatrist actually, but he was a psychiatrist who worked out of his house, which is odd, but okay. And I thought, I want to do that. I want to be able to help people and practice psychology and work from home. Well, 20, 30 years ago, that was not a thing, especially for a woman, right? Not exactly the safest thing you've ever done in your life to have your, therapy clients come to your house. But it was always in my mind that I was like, that would be so neat to be able to do that. And so then, fast forward, I went to school and I decided I wanted to learn psychology and sociology. So my background is social and clinical psychology. And it was because I wanted to learn about individuals, but I also wanted to learn how they interacted with each other and about our relationships and how we move through the world together. And so I ended up practicing and starting learning hypnotherapy in grad school for clinical psychology. And it was one of those things where you go into school and they say, okay, here's the buffet of all the different therapy modalities. What do you want to do? And what just aligns with you the most, whatever resonates, what you believe and how you want to help people. And so I chose two things at that time, and that was cognitive behavioral therapy and hypnotherapy. And for me, hypnotherapy was a no-brainer because I really wanted to be able to help people to get to the root cause of what was going on in a more gentle way, and being able to help them to figure out what's going on behind the scenes to get results faster. I didn't think that people needed to sit and talk in circles around the same thing over and over again for the next 6 or 7 years. I wanted to be able to help them to figure out what was going on so that I could then help them learn the tools and resources to be able to move forward. And so that was something I started almost right at the beginning. And at the very, very beginning of my career, I was working with kids and teens and adults. I was working with a lot of families that were dealing with crisis and trauma. And I was doing play therapy, and I was doing parenting training programs, and I was giving a lot of recommendations to the courts about custody and all sorts of things like that. And then I moved into working with a lot of adults with all different types of different challenges, a lot of anxiety and depression and OCD and ADHD and all of those things that we think of. But in the middle of me being in school, 9/11 happened. And so I think of it very similarly in what I do as when we went through the pandemic, where there was something that was on top of everything else that people were already dealing with. And so there's this widespread trauma and crisis that was happening, and there was a lot of uncertainty and fear around that. And so I got kind of thrown into the fire when I was in school of, dealing with all of the things. And, it really helped. Hypnotherapy was something that was very, very helpful as a tool to help to calm people's fears and to be able to help them to move through whatever challenges were going on with their lives and also in the world. And then I moved into working with addiction and people who were dealing with drug and alcohol offenses, and then working with teens and after school programs and group homes. And so it was something where I always felt, like I said, from a very young age, where that was what I was meant to do. And so that's really how I got into doing what I do now. Is, like I said, if you keep moving forward in time, guess what? We have computers now that have a Zoom on them, and a space where I actually get to do what I wanted to do when I was a kid, what I saw on television, which was be able to help people and work from home. And so it really all came full circle. I'd always said I want to have my own private practice by the time I turned 40. And it just so happened that that was just a year or two pre-pandemic. And I decided I wanted to learn how to work virtually. I wanted to take care of myself. I was very burnt out working with all of the court appointed clients I was working with throughout the years. And I wanted to really work with people who wanted to do the work and wanted to heal. And so, yeah, that's really how it began and what led me to do what I do now.
The path that you have taken
from
being little and being like, this is what I want to do, and I know somehow, some way, I'm going to get exactly what I want. Seeing that TV show with the person who was working out of their home, being able to help the clients that they wanted to help, you got to that. And that is absolutely amazing, being able to do what you love and find a way to get all of the perks that you've always wanted.
Oh, yeah. It was definitely a rocky road to get there, of trial and error and just figuring it out. I've had a lot of success in a very unsustainable way. And now I've been able to learn from that and heal from that and be able to create, like you said, what I always wanted, and the success that is sustainable and that feels good. And in a way that it takes care of me and my health and well-being, as well as other people's, because it can be really challenging to not lose yourself in that and not give all of your energy into helping other people. And so, that was something that was one of my lessons that I got to learn, was taking care of myself the way I teach everyone else to, and making sure that, I'm not burning out. And so, working from home, what that's really been able to do for me, and doing virtual appointments, not only do I feel like it's really beneficial for other people, my clients, to be able to be in their own comfortable space and be able to, not take as much time away from life and work and family and all the things in order to get the help that they need. So it's taken down some of those barriers, but also it helps me a lot because I get to control my schedule. I get to build in breaks throughout every, appointment throughout the day. I keep at least usually a 30-minute buffer in between, so I can reset my energy, so that I can make sure that I can give myself what I need. And that has been a big game changer for me, is not feeling like I need to constantly push through and override, because I think we do that way too much. We override our own needs, our own feelings. We're taught to do that from a very young age of, oh, you have to wait till the bell rings, or you have to wait till somebody says that you can go eat, or you can go to the bathroom, or you can get a drink of water. And, so really tuning back into me, that has been such a gift. And I feel like I had no idea when I said that when I was a kid that, I want to be able to help people and work from home, that's why it was important. I just knew that somehow it was. And so, the pandemic for me, I was already working virtually, but it gave me permission to get rid of my in-person office. At the end of 2020, I was done, and I actually moved up to our old vacation property. So I moved out of the city. It was in really close to Seattle, right in a suburb there, like 15 minutes from downtown, and moved into the mountains and could not be happier. So it was something that I never imagined how it would end up actually happening. But I'm so glad I did. And I had to go on that journey that I did in order to get here. And so it was definitely worth it.
That's amazing. And you touched on this point prior to the burnout, where you're talking about you were living your life in an unsustainable way. And then you switched to the sustainable. And I'm curious because, like you said, when we were younger, we were conditioned to just keep pushing and pushing and pushing. And then we get to the burnout space. And a lot of people did get to burnout. And I think we still do. We don't actually know what that buffer is before we start hitting burnout. What was your core belief or the lesson or the realization that you had when you switched from unsustainable to sustainable? I know that people on an unconscious level, once they kind of figure out what that belief is, that's when everything shifts. What was it for you? Because Katie and I, we go through burnout possibly often more than we should, but I'd love to know your take on that so that we can also shift in our lives.
Okay. So my core belief that was conditioned into me that led to my burnout was you have to work hard to make money. And so it was all about that work hard. And what does that look like? And what does that feel like? And it felt like pushing yourself. And it felt like you had to add things on, and it had to be hard. And so for me, I did go through not just one period of burnout. I definitely had chronic burnout and did it a few times, and would kind of crash spectacularly and then decide, okay, well, I'm burnt out and I need to make a change. And so I would take some time and I'd rest and I'd recover, and then I'd go right back to my old patterns. And so what it took for me was breaking those patterns and really recognizing what was going on. And unfortunately, it took, a lot on my health and my well-being and the things that were going on around me in order for that to really happen. And that's really what burnout can do to you. It can start really subtly. So for me, it was always, just explain it away. Like I was working with kids, so I would get sick all the time is what I would tell myself. Like, they're always sick, so I'm getting sick. And, then it snowballs. And if we don't listen to our own bodies and our, inner wisdom, it will just stop us and make us take a break. And so I experienced that a couple of times. And then 2018, my husband lovingly calls it the year of death and destruction, which I know sounds so negative, right? But it was true. Everything was falling down. It felt like around me. I literally got hit by a truck. I was stopped in traffic in Seattle, which is always fun. And somebody in a big plumbing truck was not paying attention, was texting and driving, and just plowed into the cars in front of him, not even slowing down. And one of those happened to be me. And so what happened was I just wasn't recovering in a way that I could have been expected to. My doctors were like, you're hitting this plateau, just not really getting back to where you want to be. We needed to look at that, like what's going on with that. And then we just had a lot of loss. I had a lot going on family wise.
Mm-hmm.
I was taking care of family members. I became a caregiver that year. I was trying to juggle, businesses and working with those court-appointed clients and doing all the things that I put on my plate. And it was just too much. It really was. And when we physically can't take care of all the things in our lives, we can't even hardly take care of ourselves. It's time to reevaluate what's going on. And so for me, it ended up being that realization that, okay, something's going on. It's obvious to me. This is what I do for a living, but it's me. So it's hard to see. I always say it's hard to see inside your own snow globe from the outside, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we're in the snow globe of life and you shake it up and there's the blizzard going on around you. It's really hard to see outside of that. And so we need to step back and be able to see inward. And so I actually did some sessions with one of my colleagues and was like, okay, I know something's happening. What is it? What is this chronic pain doing here? Why am I stopped at this, plateau here? Why am I hitting the wall? And so we did some sessions and I figured out that I needed to make some shifts in my lifestyle and that my body was trying to tell me something, but I apparently don't respond to taps on the shoulder. I need to be hit over the head with a frying pan or by a truck, literally, in order to get some of those lessons sometimes. And I think we all do. Sometimes we don't take the subtle hints and it takes something bigger. So for me, that was really the big catalyst. And I decided to just reevaluate all the things. And part of it was figuring out who did I really want to work with? How could I manage my energy? What kind of schedule did I need for myself? What kind of self-care did I need at a very fundamental and basic level, and working my way up to really take care of myself first and then show up at my best to be able to take care of everyone else. And that's really what I learned from that was if I don't take care of me, how am I supposed to be able to take care of everyone and everything else? And so I kind of flipped the script and said, I don't have to push. It doesn't have to be hard to be successful, right? It doesn't have to be hard to make money. It doesn't. And once I challenged that belief and I flipped that script, then everything changed.
Oh, I love that. It's so interesting because I'm currently on the East Coast and I've been chatting with my mom. And she's from that generation of boomers that was like, you got to work hard to get everything you need. Right.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, no, you don't.
Yeah, that's who we learned it from, right? It was ingrained in us from the time we were born. Work hard to make money. And so, a lot of us have that. And we have to recognize what that looks like and how it shows up in our lives, and then how we can shift that. And it is a very different world than it was for them.
Yes, it was.
Again, technology has changed a lot. And we also have, I think, as a society, and I think especially since 2020 as well, have started these conversations more. We're talking about it more. Well, before the pandemic, everyone was still pushing. Nobody was saying, oh, you don't feel well? Why don't you stay home? Why don't you just take a day? Right? Nobody said that. Everyone said, no, you need to come in. It doesn't matter. Make it work, push through. Yep. And so I'm just glad that we're now having more of those conversations and that it's more accepted to, show that you're sometimes not okay and you need to take care of yourself.
That is so very important, because so many times for those of us that are intuitive, for empaths, for givers on a whole, we give everything we got to help the people around us. And it's so easy to burn out. It's so easy to give up all of that energy and have no reserve left for ourselves. And one of the things that I've recently heard was to serve your clients from your saucer instead of your cup. Fill yourself to your overflowing, and then use that excess to help and heal everyone else. And I would love to know what your first step was to get to that point, because I know I'm still learning how to fill my cup first without dishing out that energy to help out everyone else. So any tidbits on, what's that first step would be fantastic.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I love that analogy. That's one of my favorites is, yes, give people the overflow. And so I had to start with boundaries with myself. We always talk about boundaries with everyone else. And yeah, that's really important, but we have to have boundaries with ourselves first in order to be able to then establish them with everyone else too. And so not being on all of the time. When I walk out of my office now and I turn off the computer, I turn off the light, I close the door, and I don't go back. That is huge. That is not the way I used to operate.
That is not easy.
It is not easy. It is not. I'm not going to say any of this is easy. It sounds simple, but it's not really that easy. Yeah, turning off things like notifications if you need to, anything that is sucking your energy. One of the things that I always recommend to people to start with is to look at the top 10 things or people or social media or shows or podcasts or anything that you're doing, right? So anything you're spending time on is influential. And a lot of people will say, oh, it doesn't influence me. If you're spending that much time on it, it is, even if you don't realize it. And so write down those top 10 things, people, whatever it is, and rate them. Put, a plus if it gives you energy. If you feel more energetic and you feel better about yourself, your situation in the world, put a plus next to it. If it's a minus, if it sucks your energy and you feel worse about yourself, situation, the world, put a minus. And if it's neutral and equal, and see how many of each you have and see what you can limit. There may be things that you need to limit. There may be a time and a place to, listen to that or to watch that. Or for me, for example, I can't watch news. I'm, again, highly empathic, also very auditory. And so anything that's infused with someone else's emotion, and it's always, of course, usually negative emotion, is too much, right? I can't be watching the ASPCA commercial and then try to go to work. It's just not happening. Right. I'm also for a baby mom. That's not good for me. Right. I can't watch something that's highly emotionally charged and then have to go and have energy for something else. And so we would look at those negatives and figure out, how can you limit those interactions? Can you turn off some of the notifications and just be intentional? If I want to know something that's going on in the world, it's better for me energetically to go and read it than it is to hear someone else describe it or to watch something. Inevitably I'm going to turn something on and it might be really sad and it might be really negative and it might take me into a place that I don't need to be right now. And so I'm very into guarding and protecting my energy that way, as far as looking at that. If it's a family member, you don't have to cut people out of your life. It's okay. But maybe there's certain topics you can limit those conversations, right? Maybe that's not the person to talk to about politics or your business or your relationship, for example. If it just never goes in a good direction, let's stick to some other topics or something like that. So limiting those interactions is really helpful, and being intentional about when and how you interact is really helpful as well for energy. And then the breaks that I was talking about for me and the work that I do, going from one thing to the next and rushing and being stressed, because if one person's late, then it makes you late. I had to cut that out and not keep that going anymore. That wasn't sustainable for me with my energy. And so for me, giving myself ample time and giving myself those breaks in between so that I have time for the overflow. I have time to be able to respond if I get a message that needs to be responded to, if I need to get up and go outside or take a walk or get a drink of water, or I'm hungry or whatever it is, I need to give myself space to do that. And so those were the kind of boundaries that I gave myself that were helpful, that were the first things that I started with. So it doesn't have to be a huge thing. You don't have to move out of the city into the country like I did. You don't have to change your entire life, but just changing those little things and giving yourself time to rest and recharge can make all the difference.
I love that. I've actually been on that recently.
Join us next week as Katie and Ace talk more with Jodie about burnout, work-life balance, and hypnotherapy. Thank you for joining us. We hope that the discussion today will inspire you to take positive action in your life. Until next week, be empowered.